This is a non-commentated 10-star ranking run of Silent Hill for PlayStation 1. For this run, it will be completely standard, with no special weapons used, no enemy farming tricks employed, and I will not be using the larval stalker glitch to skip the amusement park. For a full breakdown of the criteria on which you are ranked in Silent Hill 1, I will leave a timestamp in the description that links to a full commentated breakdown of all the different aspects in which you are ranked in this game. I hope you enjoy the video.
What's that? Huh, radio. What's going on with that radio? This is not a dream. What's happening to this place? What's this? Was I dreaming? Cheryl!
Harry.
Alright, so now that we've gotten our 10-star ranking for Silent Hill, let's get into the nitty-gritty of what exactly we're being judged on and how the game determines what our star rating is at the end of the game. I want to note that for your star rating, each big golden star that you see there is worth 10 small stars, and it's actually a 100-point scale. So going forward, to simplify things, I'll refer to each category as how many points it awards you, and keep in mind that 10 points is one big star. So, starting from the top, we have the difficulty level that you played on. There are no points awarded for playing on any particular difficulty level, but playing on easy mode takes points away. However, you cannot get a 10-star ranking on easy mode, as you need a certain number of game clears to actually get a full 10-star ranking. And whenever you play Next Fear to get those game clears, if you were not playing on hard mode already, your difficulty will be accelerated one level each clear until you're up to hard mode. So if you started on easy mode, your next playthrough would be on normal mode, guaranteed, and then afterwards every subsequent playthrough would be on hard. Getting into those additional playthroughs, there is your game clears, the first category that you actually get a true amount of points on, and you can get 10 points on this. You get 2 points for each game clear, meaning that you need to beat the game at least 5 times, and you qualify for a 10-star run on your 6th playthrough. I actually did go for 10 stars on my 6th playthrough, and I actually got it, but due to a bit of an error on my part, I accidentally deleted the video recording for that, going for the run that I just put on display here. And this actually did go better in some areas. Particularly, I shaved quite a lot of time off and did not go nearly as much over on my items or kills. Actually, I was kind of cutting it close on kills, but we'll get into that when we get to that category. The biggest blunder, of course, is that I had to use a continue, but we'll get to that when we get to the continues that you are rated for. Now, your ending. Only one ending actually allows you to get a 10-star ranking. You need to get the Good Plus ending, which means, of course, you need to do the Kaufman side quest, which takes up about 2 minutes if you're doing it pretty optimally, maybe a minute 30 if you're really fast and you really know the route. But you get to skip the Sybil fight altogether, so that saves you some time, especially if you make use of the larval stalker glitch just to skip right to the end of the amusement park. I did not use that though. I wanted to do this as legitimate as possible. For your next category, your saves, you get 5 stars for this category, and you are allowed 2 saves to use in the game. Now, I only used 1 save in this run, and I used it before fighting the Incubus, and I mostly just did that to check my time, to make sure I was coming in good on time, and I definitely was. The other place that is ideal to save would be right before the Split Lizard, because at the end of the school, you'll have most likely gotten most, if not all, of the fighting kills that you've wanted to get through the game, which we'll go over fighting and shooting kills when we get to that category. And the Split Lizard, as I demonstrated so eloquently, has a pretty good chance of killing you if you screw up and let him eat you, so it's a good place to save. I wanted to save just a little bit of time though, so I bypassed saving, and I reaped what I sowed on the next category, Continues, which you are actually allowed 1 continue. So I decided to use it there. I was really tempted to restart the run to have a deathless clear, but ultimately I decided I was doing well enough that it wasn't a big deal that I died there, since the continue point in the school, once you reach the Split Lizard, is right at the Split Lizard itself, so if you screw up and get eaten, you can just continue there, and just be mindful that you're not going to get any other continues for the rest of the run. Both of these categories award you 5 points if you meet them correctly. Let me see. I have a guide up just to make sure. Doesn't say specifically if you lose points for every additional save after your 2 allotted saves, but let's just assume for the sake of argument that you do. Some other things I would just like to mention now that we're at this point. If you have met a category that you're ranked on and have done the best possible, it will be yellow, as you can see, for all the categories that we've been rated on so far. Going into the next category, and this is by far the most difficult one, this is your total time. You get 1 hour and 30 minutes to complete the game and not a second more. So you really have to know what you're doing, have to know the most optimal route through every area in the game, and generally just minimize the amount of blundering, the amount of map checking, and the amount of healing. I was able to minimize quite a bit of that throughout this run. Lots of healing towards the back half of the run where things didn't really start going my way. If I could have cut out some of that, as well as a bit of the map checking and blundering, and if I'm being completely honest, leaving behind the maps that I did choose to pick up since I didn't really need to consult them at any point, I could probably shave another 2, maybe a minute and a half off of this, but 1 hour and 17 minutes is actually really good. If you want to know what I'd say is the cutoff time for you can still make this a 10-star run, I'd say if you're at 128, you can probably kill the Incubus fast enough to still have that qualify as a 10-star run. Any later than that, it might just be too tight a time, but yes, this is an extremely tight time limit, and you do not get much leeway here for reasons because of, or rather, for the next categories that really do make this a pretty marginal time limit. Our next thing that is scored on the screen, that this does not actually affect your ranking, but the game does track your walking and running distance, and naturally your running distance is going to be much higher, so it's just kind of interesting to see how often you're running compared to, when you slow down to maybe examine the area. Now, the next category that is pretty important, and is part of the reason why the tight time limit is so difficult to meet, is your item collection. You need to get at least 150 items to get the full ranking in this category. Additionally, you need to get at least 5 of the special items that are exclusive to Next Fear mode. So I see some rankings say you need over 150, but it is in fact exactly 150 if you're routing this really aggressively, which most people probably are not going to, but I can imagine there's someone out there keeping track of just how many items they should be grabbing in order to meet this as close as possible to save time. There were quite a few items that I could have skipped. Specifically, I could have avoided the police station, I could have avoided picking up the gas tank for the special items, and I could have avoided some of the rooms inside the hospital that just had like first aid kits and stuff, but it's better to go over on this category just by a little bit, and I did cut out a lot of rooms in school that just had like one thing in them that wasn't worth grabbing. For your special items, you do just need 5. I grabbed all of them just for the sake of it because I knew I'd have the extra time to do so, and it's just nice to see like it completely full all there. But you do only need to grab 5 of them. So the best one to ignore is the gas tank because it's just kind of out of the, not much more than the other ones, but it is a lot of way to have to go into the gas station, then back up and go out. Whereas the chainsaw, you can just hang a left as you're coming out of the alleyway on Balkan Street, and then of course the rock drill is in the drawbridge control tower that you have to go into anyway, so that's also just a quick thing to swing by. Channeling Stone is very much worth grabbing because there are 4 healing items in the convenience store with it. You start with the Hyper Blaster, so you don't even have to concern yourself with that, and the Katana, again, much like the Rock Drill, it's a room that's on the path you're going through anyway. For your collecting the requisite number of standard items, as well as all the special items, each of those categories awards you 10 points for 20 altogether. Now we've gone over all of the easy categories that work with flat, rigid numbers. Now we're getting into the ones that are very, very strange. Every game after this in the series used flat numbers for your kills by fighting and kills by shooting, but for this game, they instead decided to use a formula to determine whether or not you met this category. Now, to get into the distinction between fighting and shooting kills are kills that you get either with melee weapons or by stomping the enemy. Shooting an enemy to the ground and then stomping them does not count as a shooting kill, it instead counts as a fighting kill. Since melee weapons are fairly impractical in this game, most of your fighting kills are going to be coming from stomps. The only reason I think you'd have them from melee weapons in general is if you were using the special weapons like katanas, which you actually can use them in this game, but there's a bit of a complicated system for it, which we'll go over after we go over the basic system for determining what your kills are. Now, like I said, every game after this in the series used flat numbers. Specifically, Silent Hill 2 and 3, you needed 75 of each to get a full ranking in this category. Silent Hill 1's a bit different. The short answer is that you need 100 kills in both categories to get this ranking, which already is a pretty brutal thing to have to go for, considering how tight the time limit is. Silent Hill 2 and 3 require considerably less and have afford you twice as much time to actually do so. So it is pretty tough to meet that 200 required kills. Now, I know what you're thinking. Well, wait a second, you don't have 100 fighting kills and you have way more shooting kills. That's because your score from this is determined by a mathematical formula. Basically, your fighting kills and your shooting kills are divided by 5, rounded down, so that 89 would come down to, let me see here. Let's see, 80 would be 16, 90 would be 18, so yeah, that 89 would come down to 17 points. The higher number between the two is additionally divided by 2. So say I had 140 shooting kills, and we divided that down by 5, that would take us down to 28, which would then be divided by 2, giving us 14 points for our shooting kills. Those numbers that we get are then added together to our final score, which caps out at 30. So, the reason why 100 and 100 works is the 100 gets divided by 5, and then it just decides another one to have. You get 20 and 10 points for your fighting and shooting kills. Those gets added together, and you have 30. So that's why the ratio of 100 and 100 works. But like I said, if your ratio is uneven, the higher kill count that you got is divided by 2 after it is divided by 5. So, say I had 95 fighting kills, if I had 110 shooting kills, that would give me full points in this category. And likewise, if I had 90 fighting kills, then 120 shooting kills would give me the full ranking in this category. Now, the ratio that I was shooting for was 80 fighting kills and 140 shooting kills, which, as you can see, I did not quite meet that. I went a little more on fighting kills and a little less on shooting kills. But the reason I was going for a ratio like that, which I know what you're thinking, that sounds pretty suboptimal because I have to kill a whole 40 extra enemies to get the full ranking here. The thing is that shooting kills come a lot faster than fighting kills. When you kill an enemy by fighting, most likely you're going to be stomping them, so you have to blast them to the ground, then run up, then kick them, and then let that second long kick animation play. And sometimes Harry will whiff his kick, so you have to do it again. And sometimes you'll not have your positioning quite right, so you have to finagle around until you're able to kick the enemy. And I just consider it such a hassle, and it's so much harder to keep doing consistently against things that aren't gray babies, that really, I think it's just best to go for about 80 fighting kills, since if you kill about 10 groaners before you enter the school, and then just kill everything you come across in the school with kicks, you'll almost certainly get all the fighting kills need if you opt to kill everything with shooting afterwards. I did end up cutting this pretty close because the sewers, both of them, went absolutely terrible for me, and I ended up eating a lot of damage, and I just wanted to get out of there quickly so I didn't die and have to redo the entire thing. So I ended up cutting it much closer on shooting kills than I would have liked, but because I was over on fighting kills, it ended up balancing out in the end. Now for the strangest category in the game. It seems that every Silent Hill game, save for 4, has a very odd category that you get ranked on, and for Silent Hill 1, it is the shooting style. Shooting style is a category that if you meet it, you'll get the final 10 points you need for your 10-star ranking. And it's not exactly obvious from the name what it is referring to, but it's just a very weirdly named system for determining your accuracy, or rather grading your accuracy. So that no aiming shots at the bottom, that's a very roundabout way of saying missed shots. You are ranked for your short-range shots, your middle-range shots, your long-range shots, and your no-aiming shots. Now, how are these added together to give you 10 points altogether? Well, each category is multiplied by a certain amount. So your short-range shots are multiplied by 10. So if we multiply by 10, we'd get 3.6. Your middle-range shots are multiplied by 20. Your long-range shots are multiplied by 30, and your no-aiming shots are multiplied by 40, but they are subtracted from the total of your previous shots types. So let's see, we had 40 there at 0.6. Oh boy. Let's see, so 10, if it was multiplied by 10, would be... Sorry, I'm trying to just do this quickly in my head. It's 0.06, so yeah, we had a 2.4 subtraction from our final score there because it got multiplied by 40. So to compensate for that, our other shots have to be that much higher, or considerably higher than the amount of... I'm really bungling this explanation right now. Let me cut to the simple explanation. Basically, you want your no aiming shots to be under about 10%, so that anything below 0.10 on that screen right there will most likely get you full ranking for this category, so long as your middle range shots are over around the 40% range or so. If you can manage it, you'd like to get a lot of long-range shots, but it is a bit tricky to do so. The only weapon that can do it consistently is the rifle, and because the sewers went so terribly for me, I didn't really want to try and go for that on hanging scratchers because they were just swarming me so bad, and I had terrible luck with the aggro. Going for a lot of middle-range shots, which most of these I built up in the hospital against the nurses, who are pretty easy to hit, and they come into sight at around mid-range, so I built up a ton of mid-range shots there. And obviously, getting shots of any variety, if you just run up the things and get a bunch of short-range shots, that'll of course subtract from the no-aiming shots that you got after a while. In previous attempts, I always used the shotgun on the float stinger, which kind of drove up my no-aiming shots a lot. You cannot really afford to use the shotgun in a run like this too often, because due to the spread fire pattern, it launches multiple pellets at the enemy, and not all of them are guaranteed to hit the enemy, and oftentimes at least one pellet from the shotgun will miss, and if a single pellet misses, the entire thing is considered a no-aiming shot, so you really cannot use the shotgun that frequently in a run like this. One other thing that I want to comment on, as just to round this out, is that you can use the special weapons in a 10-star ranking run. However, there is a penalty applied to using them after a certain number of uses on your kills, where they start invalidating kills that you got with them. Additionally, The Hyper Blaster has a drawback where, because it has perfect accuracy and infinite range, any shot fired with the Hyper Blaster is considered a no aiming shot, so you really cannot use that weapon too much. If you're curious on how the game determines if you're allowed to use or how often you're allowed to use special weapons, the simple answer is that every game clear that you get gives you 5 additional uses of a special weapon. So around 30 game clears or so, if you feel like grinding that out, or just using a Game Shark to hack it in, you can actually make pretty regular use of the katana since it doesn't detract from your aiming if you use it. If you are going for successing 10-star runs, you can absolutely use the Hyper Blaster sparingly early on and just make up for the no aiming shots it gives you later. But I didn't want to go for that, and I wouldn't have had too many uses of it anyway, since I only had 6 game clears, so I'd be allowed 30 shots of whatever special weapon I decide to use. But if you meet all of those categories, you get the full 100 points from everything combined, you get shiny gold stars, 10 of them in fact, and you get to use the overpowered green Hyper Blaster in the next run. One final thing to note is that you want to make sure you save your 10-star ranking file in a separate slot and never overwrite it, because each successive next fear determines your Hyper Blaster power from the rank you got in the previous run, so that's just something to keep in mind. With that all broken down, if you are watching this before the video, I hope you go into it now with understanding of what exactly it is I'm going for. Thank you so much, and I hope to see you in my next video.